Today we are going to be talking about law of cosines. If we are given the measures of all three sides, so if we are not given any angles, or we're given the measure of two sides and their included angle, so either all three sides or two sides and their included angle. In other words, we're not given a pair. If we are not given a pair, then you use law of cosines. Okay? So let's talk about what law of cosines is. Law of cosines is a more involved formula than law of sines. So after doing several problems, I think you'll have it memorized without attempting to memorize it, but you do need to know law of cosines and law of sines. They will not be given to you on a test or quiz. Alright, law of cosines is this. It says to get the opposite side. So if we're given two sides and the included angle, to get the opposite side, in this case little b, to get side b, I would say b squared is equal to, okay, the sum of the squares of the other two sides, so a squared plus c squared in this case, minus 2 times a times c times cosine of that included angle, b. Okay, so starts off with squares. I'm going to walk you through some tips to memorize it. Starts off with squares, beginning with what you're looking for. Okay? Alright, and then it has this minus twice the product of what you just wrote, and then cosine of that included angle. This side is paired with that angle every time. So we're using that opposite side from the given angle. Okay, of course we could rewrite this using the other two. So if I'm looking for side A, then I will start with the sum of the squares of the other two sides minus twice their product times cosine of angle A, because this angle must always, the side I'm looking for must have this opposite angle right there. Okay, and of course we could write this in terms of c. So c squared would be the sum of the squares of the other two sides minus twice their product times cosine of angle c. Again, these match. Oh, my little pink pen is about to die. Okay. Alrighty, and that is law of cosines. Okay. Now there is an alternative form of the law of cosines. So we use this if we're looking for the side. If we're looking for the side, we use this. What if we're given all three sides and we're looking for an angle? So we can take any of these and solve it for the angle. I'm going to do that here. I'm going to maybe just take this one. So I'm going to solve this for angle C. So I have c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of angle C. I'm solving this for c, so I'm going to begin by subtracting a squared and b squared to the other side. So c squared minus a squared minus b squared must equal that negative 2ab cosine of angle C. And now I am going to divide both sides by negative 2ab, and I'm going to get c squared minus a squared minus b squared divided by negative 2ab is equal to cosine of c. At this point I notice that of all my terms over here, only one is positive. Whenever that's the case, I will multiply top and bottom by a negative 1. since I'm multiplying top and bottom by the same thing, I am not changing the value. All I'm doing is multiplying by 1. And I'm going to get cosine of c is equal to a squared plus b squared minus c squared all over 2ab. So now only the c squared is negative. And that is the alternative form of law of cosines. So that would be if we were looking for angle C. Of course, we could write this looking for angle A or B. So if you're looking for angle A, let's notice here was angle C. Side C squared was the only one that was negative. So if I'm looking for angle A, side A squared will be the only negative thing. So we'll have b squared plus c squared minus a squared all over twice b times c. If we're looking for angle B, I will add a squared plus c squared minus b squared divided by 2ac. So that is the alternative form of law of cosines. Okay? Let's look at an example. So in this case, I'm given angle A, side B, and side C. I am not given a pair, right? I'm given angle A, but not side A. So we cannot use law of sines. We have to use law of cosines. So in the picture, here's angle A, here's side B, here's side C, and I am looking for side A, which is opposite there. So definitely law of cosines. So I'm looking for side A, so a squared is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So 6 squared plus 9 squared minus twice their product times cosine of the angle that's paired with this, the 68 degrees. So into our calculator we go. We're going to type this all in at once to avoid any errors. So 6 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 6 times 9 cosine of 68 degrees. That would be a squared, right? That's a squared. I'm just looking for a. So I'm surprised I didn't do this here. We are going to square root both sides. And usually I type that all in at once. But to get a, we're going to square root what we just typed in. Okay? We're only going to keep the positive because we're talking about sides of a triangle. So I could, since I already typed that part in, I could square root my answer and I get the answer that way. Or usually what I do is I square root and type it all in at once. Of course, this would be if I hadn't already typed it in. And of course we get the same answer regardless. So A is 8.74, and I'm going to round that last 8 to a 9. Okay? Alright, let's look at number 2 here. I'm looking for H, which I know is opposite that angle, but I'm not given another pair. I'm given the other two sides instead. So I'm going to set up h squared is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides, so 9 squared plus 17 squared, minus twice their product, times cosine of that included angle, where h and that angle are opposites each other. So to get h, we square root both sides, And we get h is equal to, okay, square root 9 squared plus 17 squared minus 2 times 9 times 17, cosine of 53 degrees. So side h is 11.208. Okay. Another example. In this example, we are given the measures of all three sides, and we're looking for an angle. We're looking for angle A. Okay? So we're definitely not given a pair, so we have to use law of cosines. And we're looking for an angle, so I'm going to use that alternative form. So cosine of angle A is equal to, my side A I know is that negative, I'm going to have a minus 5 squared at the back. The other two are the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So 8 squared plus 7 squared, like that, all divided by twice the product of 8 times 7. Okay. When we type this into our calculator, we are going to cosine inverse or inverse cosine both sides. I'm going to write it like this. On my paper, I'm writing it like this. But in our calculator, we're going to need to be very careful here. And I'll tell you why. We are going to need to use parentheses around the entire numerator and the entire denominator. Make sure you use parentheses around there. Okay? Otherwise, you will not get the correct answer. The calculator is going to do order of operations, and if you don't have those parentheses in there, it will not yield the correct answer. So cosine inverse, and I'm going to insert another parentheses. I know they gave me a parentheses, but I need parentheses around my entire numerator. So 8 squared plus 7 squared minus 5 squared, close the parentheses around the numerator, divided by parentheses, because we're around the entire denominator, 2 times 8 times 7, close parentheses around the denominator, close parentheses for your cosine inverse. And the correct answer here is 38.213 degrees. Okay? So make sure you do that. We didn't have to do that before because we weren't adding and subtracting things on top in the numerator, and there was only one thing in the denominator with law of sines. If there's just one thing in the denominator, you don't need parentheses around it, or the numerator. But with adding and subtracting in the numerator, you need parentheses around it. With more than one thing in the denominator, you need parentheses around it. Okay, number 4. Find the measure of angle P. Okay, I'm looking for angle P. I'm given the three sides. So I'm going to set up cosine of angle P is equal to, alright, its opposite side is the one that's a negative in the back. The other two are positive. So 5 squared plus 8.6 squared minus 7 squared, divided by twice the product, 5 times 8.6. So P will be inverse cosine of 5 squared plus 8.6 squared minus 7 squared over 2 times 5 times 8.6. Again, to reinforce this, put parentheses around your entire numerator and entire denominator when you put it in your calculator. You don't have to write it here, but definitely when you put it in your calculator, put it there. Okay, so cosine, inverse, inverse cosine, parentheses, an extra parentheses, 5 squared plus 8.6 squared minus 7 squared, close the parentheses around the numerator, divided by, open parentheses around your entire denominator, 2 times 5 times 8.6, close parentheses around the denominator, close parentheses for your cosine inverse, and angle P is 54.484 degrees. Okay? Number 5. Okay. In number 5, we're solving the triangle. So let's write down what we are given. We're given that B is 100 degrees. Side A is 6, side C is 8. We're not given a pair, so we have to use law of cosines. And I'm going to use law of cosines first to find side B. So B squared is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides minus twice their product times cosine of the angle opposite side B, 100 degrees. Square root both sides, and B will equal the square root of 6 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 6 times 8 cosine of 100. B is 10.801. Dot 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 if we have to use it. I don't know if we'll have to use it, but I'm going to write 10.801, but know that that is not exact. Okay. Now we need to get angle A and angle C, but now I have a pair. So since I have a pair, I can use law of sines to get angle A or angle C. Okay? So I'm going to do that. Let us, I think I'll just go get angle A. So I'm just going to set up sine of angle A is to its opposite side, as sine of angle B is to its opposite side, and I am going to have to use that unrounded version. Okay? I'm going to cross multiply here, and I have sine of angle A is 6 sine of 100 divided by what we just found. So A will be inverse sine of all of that. So inverse sine of 6 sine of 100, close parentheses around the angle, divided by what we just found. So angle A is 33.16449 dot dot dot. I'm going to write 33.164 degrees. To get angle C, I'm going to use the fact that these add to 180. I could go and use law of sines again, but it's quicker and easier just to go get, just to use the fact that those all add to 180. So 180 minus 100 minus what we just found. So 180 minus 100 minus what we just found is 46.836 degrees. So, law of cosines, a little bit longer than law of sines, but not too bad. Okay, down here on the bottom, I found this online. I kind of liked it, a little flow chart on solving triangles. This is how to solve a triangle. Ask yourself these questions. Is it a right triangle? If so, does it involve any angles? If so, use your trig ratios, SOHCAHTOA. Okay? If not, if no angles, use Pythagorean theorem. Okay? If the triangle is not right triangle, do you know a pair? Do you know a pair, a side and its angle? If so, use rule of sines, use the law of sines. If not, use law of cosines. And that's it.